Let me ask the panelists for our next panel to make your way up to the stage now, please. So our next panel is focusing on military spouses, leveraging non-traditional pathways to find military spouse talent. Take it away.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Amy Rossi. I am the co-founder of Military Spouse Jobs. I founded Military Spouse Jobs with Deb Kleppel over 20 years ago, and I have remained consistently with the organization ever since. We are missing one of our panel members, Lauren Hope. Today, based on earlier conversation, we're actually going to switch it up slightly for you guys. And but before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Patty Barron. Thank you for coming. She is the president of PMB Consulting. And then we have Susan Charlton, who is a senior key spouse. She has a huge background in financial. And then we have Rear Admiral Dan Kleppel with Military Spouse Jobs and Vet Jobs. And before we actually start our panel discussion, I'm going to call him up to give you a little bit of information. Sir?
Thank you, Amy. So my wife, Debbie, was supposed to be here today, and she had an issue with her pancreas. And the results just came back on Tuesday that what she had is not cancer. So, but she was asked not to travel in case they need to do surgery on something that might turn into cancer. So that's why she's not here today. But I will guarantee you she's the communicator of the family. So I'm a poor substitute. I'm in the leadership and money management role in these two organizations, but you're missing a really captive speaker by Debbie not being here. So hopefully we'll get another opportunity to do that. So thank you for inviting us. I want to take the time to address some things that came up in the previous discussion. So I am the CEO of both Vet Jobs and Military Spouse Jobs, and we've grown significantly since 2019 when we changed our names basically to Vet Jobs and Military Spouse Jobs, and we've become pretty well known. And I'll give you an example. At the end of Q1 this year, we went over 108,000 job placements of veterans and military spouses. We are the employment program for the National Guard and Reserve. We have MOUs with National Guard Bureau and with the Army Reserve P3 program. They use our technology, which is donated to us by Infinite Computer Solutions. It's called Brass Ring. It is excellent technology. They have donated to that technology to us since Debbie started these programs 20 years ago. And all of our people that work for us, we've got about 100 people all over the world. They all work from home. They're all veterans and military spouses. They understand the mission. They love the mission. They're really good on the technology. We currently have about almost 400,000 people in our database. And the other organizations that were mentioned in the previous, like ACP, AWP, HOH, we have reciprocal MOUs and agreements with those organizations, and this is why. We want to collaborate. We don't want to compete. So ACP, if our applicants need mentorships, we go to ACP. If we have wraparound requirements from AWP, we refer those to AWP. When they have people that need job placement, they send them to us. So we have about 15 reciprocal partners that we collaborate with. So Wounded Warrior Project, if we have an individual that needs a change in the workplace, They have the expertise and the money to make that happen. If they have somebody that may have a 20% disability that needs no change, just needs training and job placements, they send them to us. Hiring Our Heroes, Chamber of Commerce. They have government programs with SkillBridge and fellowships for spouses. If we have people that want to do that, we refer them to us, to them, to HOH. If HOH has people that just want direct job placements, they refer them to us. And last year, they referred about 7,000 people to us, and we help them get jobs. USO, they have places in almost every base, so we have MOUs with them. They send us transitioning service members and spouses that we work with. DOL, MOU with DOL, we're on their list to, we get referrals every month. The Veterans Administration, we have a VA grant, $500,000 that's renewable for 4 years. But what's it for? To help transitioning service members and spouses. So we're pretty good at what we do. And I'll tell you that over the years, we haven't spent a nickel on advertising. That's probably why you don't know about us, because I've always wanted to spend the money on our career specialists and our Recruiter Connect specialists to do the work. And I will tell you that we placed almost 3,200 people in the first quarter this year. We had a span of February and March where 6 weeks in a row, we got over 1,000 applicants a week. So the work is there. The jobs are there. We have over 2 million jobs on our job board. We've advertised to the new federal workers that might get displaced. 30% of all federal workers are veterans. Some of those guys and girls are gonna be out of work. We're gonna help them. So we get it. When something happens like that, we're there to help. So I hope that you will come and visit us at our table over here. We have great one-page cards that'll help you work with us. It'll give you some clues who to contact and how to register. I've got cards over there if you need to talk to me. I'd love to talk to you. And with that, I'm going to get back to telling you about military spouse jobs. And Amy's going to start by talking about her training department. She does a magnificent job of training veterans and military spouses, not only to get jobs initially, but to get promotions in the jobs that they might have. So it's a tremendous situation. So Amy, over to you, and then I'll come back when you're done.
Thank you for that. So Amy Rossi, I am the Director of Training here. And what makes Vet Jobs, Military Spouse Jobs unique is that we started as a military spouse organization, which meant that the majority of our candidates were already displaced workers. So they were already career switchers and multifunctional, which meant that we had to approach job search from a unique perspective. We couldn't just offer job search resources. We also had to offer the ability for people to gain skills when they were missing skills and to re-career. And so our organization probably approaches job search differently, and we work differently with employers because not only do we allow our candidates to come in and provide resources and training to help them transition, understand how to read the job description that you have, and create resumes and resources, interview skills for your companies, but we also provide the opportunity for them to get training so that they have the appropriate skills so that they are actually getting in the door to actually talk to you. So we have career specialists, we have the training department. So we offer upskilling, career resources, and professional development. So once they are employed with you, we provide resources for them to continue education with us so that they are getting promotions with you and remaining employed with you because their skills are growing in their roles. We've had so many success stories where people come to us and say, everybody was laid off, but I was not because I continued training with you. And because my skills were so high, they remain gainfully employed while other people have lost their roles. Now with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get back on track with the panel and ask some questions to our panelists. So if you can, Admiral Kleppel, could you talk about how military spouse jobs came to be?
I'm going to jump up here.
Okay.
I'm used to talking in this manner, so I got to tell you, Bo, I've known Bo for many years with Amazon, and there is nobody who's broken the code about being noticed in a crowd better than Bo Higgins. And Mike Kelly, USA has been a financial supporter of our programs for as long as I remember, and thank you for mentioning us earlier. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support we've gotten from USA over the years. So how did military spouse jobs come to be? I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background because it's something that led to the start of the spouse program. So I was a career reservist. I spent 6 years on active duty, and then after 6 years, I made the transition to the Navy Reserve. Basically, I got off active duty on a Wednesday. I joined the reserves on Friday in New Orleans. I did drill weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and I started as an airline pilot on Monday. That was my transition from active duty to the reserves and to the civilian world. And I'm a blessed individual. That doesn't happen to a lot of people. I've been a blessed individual for my whole life. So I much appreciate how life has treated me because I had so many great jobs in the Navy. So for the next 30 years, I was a reservist and an airline pilot. And I loved it. I loved flying Navy fighters off aircraft carriers, and I loved having an office at 50,000 feet. It was about as good as you can get as far as I was concerned. It was my dream to be a Navy fighter pilot and an airline pilot, and I got to do it. How many people get to do that? I mean, that was my dream when I was a junior in college, and I got to do it. So I'm a blessed individual. As my career progressed as a flag officer, I ended up having 5 commands. I wasn't a typical Naval reservist because all my recalls were active duty. They weren't reserve jobs. They were active duty jobs. So I did a tour in the Mideast as a deputy commander for the Joint Task Force, doing the flying in Iraq and in the Arabian Gulf. And it was 6 months unaccompanied, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. But it was a real learning process. And of course, Debbie wasn't part of that. My wife Debbie wasn't part of that because it was unaccompanied. But not too long after that, after I took that job, the CNO decided that he was going to give me some other jobs that I might like a little better than living in Saudi Arabia for 6 months. I don't go to the beach to this day because I saw so much sand. So he gave me a job in Iceland. I was the commander of the Iceland Defense Force, NATO commander for the country. And in order for Debbie to go along, she was an executive at American Airlines, and she had to get a military spouse leave of absence, which didn't exist till then. She and I went to the CEO at the time of American Airlines, and they gave us a military spouse leave of absence so she could go spend a year in Iceland with me. And I couldn't have done it without her. So this was kind of the life of a military spouse. She had to give up a very prominent position at American to accompany me to do that. Well, shortly after that, when I got back, can you go to U.S. Transportation Command? They need a J5. It's got to be an admiral. So I took that job, and I worked for a 4-star in charge of the Transportation Command. And at the time, Debbie went back to her job at American, and she was working in Dallas. I was in Belleville, Illinois. So we saw each other occasionally on weekends. So that was a long 6 months tour. None of my recalls were more than a year, except for Iceland got to a year. But after that, multiple recalls to active duty. So after Transcom, I went to Naval Strike and Air Warfare Center out in Fallon, Nevada. Fallon, Nevada is where Top Gun is located. And I commanded a reserve F-18 squadron. And when I went to Naval Strike and Air Warfare Center, I got recalled in the F-18, and the CEO of Top Gun worked for me. So I got to fly with those kids. I was a 52-year-old 2-star flying with Top Gun kids in an F-18. It's like going to heaven. And I'm telling you, I was a blessed individual. That's one of the best jobs I ever had. But again, Debbie had to take another leave to go out there with me. So it was tough on her, great for me, but it's the life of a military spouse. When we came back from that, she went back to work for American, and I got recalled to active duty again to be the deputy commander at the training 3-star down in Pensacola, Florida, and he owned boot camp up at Great Lakes, Naval Training Center at Great Lakes. And there was an admiral there that got himself fired. And this is why I want to tell you the story at how military spouse jobs got started. So anybody here from New York not know about 9/11, 2001? Everybody knows that, right? Everybody will remember that. 9/11, 2001. So the Thursday before that, I was told by my boss, can you be at Great Lakes next Monday? The admiral up there has got himself fired and you need to be there on Monday. I called Debbie and she says, interesting, because I've just been assigned to go to New York on Monday because American had just bought TWA. And Debbie's assignment was to go up and have a town hall meeting with the flight attendants in New York. She was a flight attendant advisor on the staff in Dallas. So she was sent to New York to talk to the flight attendants on American. So I go to work on Monday morning, which is September 10th, 2001. And I start my job, and then the next morning, my chief of staff walks in and says, Admiral, turn the TV on, you won't believe what's happening. And I'm seeing a picture of an American Airlines jet hitting a tower. This is 9/11. And I listen to my voicemail, and I'm hearing my wife say, I've got a meeting this morning in the Twin Towers. Never been there before, really looking forward to it. She was meeting with the lawyer for the TWA Flight Attendants Union. So when that second jet hit the second tower, Debbie was pushing the elevator button. That's how close it was. She was pushing the button at 9:15. You know what time the second airplane hit? 9:15. Immediately, she smelled kerosene. She had a team of 6 with her. She said, we got to get out of here. That's kerosene. And she doesn't even know an airplane hit the first time. So she's out the door. She gets showered with debris, and she doesn't know what to do next. And then she's put in charge of handling all the stranded pilots and flight attendants in New York City, because there's no way to get out of New York City at the time. There's no way for her to even call me. They bring the chaplain up to see me because I can't believe I'm on active duty and somebody's trying to kill my wife. So about 4:30 in the afternoon, she finally gets through, and my secretary says, I'm sorry, ma'am, we have to keep this line open. The admiral's wife might try to call us. I am the admiral's wife. So for the next week, she takes care of the pilots and the flight attendants that are stranded. And I finally get her back to Chicago, where Great Lakes is, on that following Saturday. And I later get a credit card bill for about $5,000 for beer and cigarettes. That's how she placated people for a week at the hotel where they were all staying. But it was quite an eerie situation, as you can imagine. If you're from New York, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you all saw it. Well, 3 years later, I'm about 2 months from retirement. I bring her back to New York to go see the memorial. And she looks at me and said, I lived through this to do something special, and I'm going to do that with my life. So she went back, and in 2005, along with help from Amy, she created what was called the Military Spouse Corporate Career Network, because she wanted to help spouses able to find career enhancing work and live through what a military spouse goes through, and having to leave executive positions or any kind of job and going to their next duty station. She lived through it. She knew what she was trying to help. And I will never forget the first defense contractor to fund her program was Boeing Defense in St. Louis. And a little nonprofit called the Paul Newman Foundation. Those were her first two funders that got her started. And she did quite well with the funding and getting it started. But Amy will tell you, they were doing that for peanuts. It was all about the mission. And Amy had actually helped start the Army Spouse Employment Program. And when she came aboard with Debbie, it really started taking off. In 2019, we actually made the change in names to Vet Jobs and Military Spouse Jobs. Vet Jobs came about, it was called Corporate America Supports You, because the director of the Army National Guard wrote her a letter of need. Said, can you create a program like your spouse program for my guardsmen? And that's how Corporate America Supports You started. That started in 2010. We started getting significant funding in 2012. And as you know, Vet Jobs and Military Spouse Jobs, we changed those names in 2019, and they really started taking off. So I'm going to send it back to Amy, and that's how Military Spouse Jobs got started.
Thank you. It's a clear example of how big moments define you. When you are faced with huge challenges, you can choose a better way to tackle those challenges. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start opening up the questions to our panel. Patty, I have a question for you. What government programs like MSEP and 4+1 legislation and resources do you find the most impactful for helping people find military spouses?
Thank you, Amy. Can you hear me? Great. So just real quick, yes, I'm the president of PMB Consulting. I'm the president of one because I'm the PMB consultant. But before this job, I had the honor of being the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Military Community Family Policy. I was a day one appointee under the Biden-Harris administration, and obviously I don't have a job now. But I tell you, it was one of the biggest honors of my life. And one of the things that I was really charged with, because Dr. Biden at the time was launching Joining Forces. I don't know if any of you know that initiative, but worked really hard to provide military families with good quality of life programs and policies. Military spouse hiring was one that we really worked on very, very, very hard. And just real quick, by background, I really always just define myself as a regular, normal military spouse. I followed my soldier for 30 years. We got married when he was a second lieutenant, all the way through his career, and moved 14 times, raised 3 kids. And so, yeah, I know what it's like to have to reinvent yourself everywhere you go. Getting the job as the DASD of MCNFP was something I never, ever anticipated. But I did know that we needed to do something really important, and that is try to get after that 21% or so unemployment rate for military spouses that were currently looking for employment. Now, I think the President Obama during that time, they really focused on veterans, and that unemployment rate for veterans came way down, which is fantastic. But for military spouses, it's never really changed that much. And there's an awful lot of reasons why, one of them being that there's an awful lot of movement. Like I said, 14 times in 30 years, I've moved a lot. Now, what I can tell you is that there are a couple of programs that I'm very proud of that I think that you all need to know about. And the reason it's important is because, in the military, you have something called operational readiness. Operational readiness, ships, planes, tactics, all of that. But there's also something that's not known as well, and that's home front readiness. Because if a service member cannot concentrate on their mission because they're worried about what's going on at home, that reduces their ability to do their mission well, and and really impacts readiness for all of us. So therefore, when you think about home front readiness, one of the things that you all can think about that you could really make an impact on is economic security of our military families. This is a country now of dual income families. Many, many civilian families are dual income. For military families, that's even harder because not only do you move, but it takes a little bit of time to get yourself settled and whatnot. And what we created, well, it was already created when I got there, but I feel like we improved it in the DoD, was something called the Spouse Education Career Opportunities. And within the Spouse Education Career Opportunities, there's 3 programs I'm going to mention really fast. The first one is My CAA. My CAA is a $4,000 scholarship for military spouses whose husbands or wives are of the rank of E1 to E9, W1 to W3, or O1 to O3. And this $4,000 scholarship can go towards an associate's degree if they don't have one. It can also go for certification and license, and continuing education credit hours that many spouses need. So we're really, really proud of this program and the fact that we were able to expand it during the time that I was the DASD. The second one is the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. I need you all to pay attention to this one. How many of you here in the room are MSEP partners? Thank you very, very much. What does the MSEP partner do? And there was a question earlier about where do we find talent? What is the pool where you go to find talent? Well, the MSEP portal is where you as hiring officials would go to find military spouse talent, because we have close to a little over 900 MSEP partners right now. Those are industry partners that have raised their hand and said, we want to hire military spouses. That takes away that burden for that military spouse not to self-identify, because that's how you get the job through MSEP. You say, I'm a military spouse. Great, we're looking for you. Lots and lots of different entry-level jobs, management jobs, even executive C-suite jobs you can find on MSEP. And we're very proud of our partners that work really hard to try to hire spouses. But so if you're not an MSEP partner, what you want to do is you want to go on Military One Source, that's all one word, militaryonesource.mil, MIL/MySECO, SECO. And when you go there, you'll find the information on the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. And the last one that I really want to talk to you about, and it's one of the most successful things that we've done in a very long time, through a partnership with Hiring Our Heroes and Deloitte, we've been able to provide fellowships for military spouses. Because for the longest time, I kept hearing, why don't we have a skill bridge for spouses? Not as easy to do as you might think. And Amazon, you guys have done a great job with that. So, and USAA too. So what we were able to receive was money from Congress for this fellowship. And then we worked with Deloitte and Hiring Our Heroes to be able to execute the program. We've been able to place probably now over 1,000 spouses in fellowships. The program is only about maybe 2 years old. And the beauty of it is that we have something like a 91% rate of fellows becoming permanent employees. 91%, y'all. That is pretty doggone good. And so this is a program that we're trying to make a program of record. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few years, but we're certainly hoping that because of the success that we've had, it will happen. And so those of you in the room that are looking at kind of auditioning people for your companies, we pay the fellowship. You all don't have to do anything except provide the fellowship for that spouse. And then hopefully there's going to be a job that they can go into. So those are 3 programs that I really, really want to talk to you about.
Thank you so much. Great information there. I'm going to open the floor. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to go to Susan. Susan, if you can, what we would like you to talk about is, oops, timer. She finished a little ahead of schedule. Thank you. If you can, have you as a senior guard spouse personally or professionally struggled in the area of employment, and what would you tell employers that would help them understand the journey of a military spouse looking for employment?
Thank you. So I would like to share with you today maybe the perspective of the lesser known National Guard spouse. And what maybe you don't realize is that the National Guard is kind of great, is that you don't necessarily have to change locations. So my husband, Gary, started as an enlisted at 19 because he decided after a semester of college that Uncle Sam needed to help him pay for college. But he was born 20 minutes from the base in Syracuse, and he worked there for 25 years until his career had kind of plateaued. So he started enlisted, and then after 10 years, figured out a way to get into pilot training after 3 tries and a last-ditch effort. But and so I met him when he was a captain flying F-16s, and I had a great career in insurance. I was traveling the country and met him because he asked me for the ketchup at my table. I say it was restaurant because I was eating. He says it's a bar. It's debatable. But so when we were both 34, and when we had kids, one of us had to stop doing all the traveling. And so I will say that the struggles have all been of our choosing. So he didn't have to change jobs after 25 years and start traveling. That was for career progression. And I didn't have to change, stop my job, but because we had kids, one of us needed to stay there. And so since, how many years ago? It's like 12 years ago, Gary started, he was a lieutenant colonel and kind of plateaued out. And so he got a call to interview at Niagara Falls, and he never thought he would leave Syracuse. Our whole goal in life was to just continue on in Syracuse. But we packed up the babies and got in the truck and went to Niagara Falls. And he went into the interview, and he came back and he was like, "This isn't going to be good." He came back and he said, "That went really well." I was like, "What does that mean?" And so he got the job, but we were in the middle of renovating our dream home, which is in the Finger Lakes in Skaneateles. And we have a boat mooring, and it's right next to a private airport, so ideal. But it was halfway done. We had literally just ripped out the kitchen. We were living in the basement where we were putting in hardwood floors on the weekends, and it was not the time to put your house on the market without a kitchen. And so Gary geo-bachelored. They said, "We just need you for a year, maybe 2. Well, 2 turned into 7, and he made colonel and he made wing commander, and it was wonderful. But each time we thought, 1 more year, we'll just keep going. But I don't recommend geo-bacheloring at all, because what do you need? Okay. Because it's just really hard on families, and it's expensive too. You're now supporting 2 households. So with all of that, the struggles for National Guard spouses aren't necessarily like you could hire a National Guard spouse and they could stay with you for 20 years. They probably don't need benefits. They have benefits. So just because they check that, but what they do need is flexibility. So that's the reasons I did not keep going once we had the kids, is because he was, not there. And it's kind of like being a single spouse. And so if you could give flexibility and stability and career growth to a military spouse, that would be ideal.
Yeah. So we are coming up on our time limit. Instead of asking the panel more questions, I'm going to go ahead, open up questions to anybody in the audience that has them.
I'll just do this.
Test.
I'm a listed person, so I can yell pretty good. First of all, thank you for being here today. I think spouses in general are most underappreciated because a lot of individuals don't know what you do. My wife was active duty. I served 26 years in the Air Force, and she had the toughest job of raising our 3 kids while I was off playing in sandboxes. So thank you guys for what you do. To all the prospective employers, as well as the individuals in this room today, if you were to describe some of the qualities that a military spouse has as they're going into organizations, how would you describe that?
I'll take that one really, really quick. And then, of course, adaptable, flexible, very, very loyal, we will work as hard as we can, no matter what the job is, to get it done and get it done well. My career started out as a registered nurse. We went to Germany, couldn't work as a nurse, did all sorts of other things. But every single thing that I did to the very best of my ability. And you could never tell me when I was 20-something years old that one day I would be the DASD of MCNFP. That just was an impossible thing to think about. So those are the words that I would use, because when you hire a military spouse, you hire someone that really wants to work, and they want to show you what they are capable of, and they're going to show you that for whatever job you hired them for, they can do something even better and continue to go up in your company. One quick thing. Remote work, if there's an opportunity, once you get them and then they have to leave, if that job can be translated into a remote job, then you're retaining that spouse.
I think diverse. You also have incredibly diverse spouses. We are natural networkers, and we open our network to others. So once you are in with a military spouse, you're going to be in with a lot of other military spouses and veterans, because we are going to talk about your organization online. We're going to talk about it in our community, and we're going to talk about it to our friends. Any other questions?
I was just wondering if you could repeat the military one.
Yeah, happy to do that. So it would be Military One Source, all one word, militaryonesource.mil, M-I-L, /myseco, S-E-C-O.
Timer. Any last minute questions? If not, if you have any questions for vet jobs, military spouse jobs, we have employer cards out on the table and up here in the corner where you can get information on our program. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for being a great audience.
Thank you so much to that panel. Really, really important stuff. I think too often military spouses get kind of forgotten and left behind in these conversations, and they face some significant challenges. So really important stuff.